What's going on, everybody? This is Snowman. Welcome to another editing tutorial where this week or month or whenever I do these things, we are talking all about animation. This is everything that I know. I'm gonna try anyway to condense and pack and cover everything I know about animation that I haven't already previously covered in other tutorials. So you may see a little bit of overlap, but for the most part, I'm gonna kind of go over everything that happens in the effects panels here, all this crazy stuff up here in the left, and we're gonna be looking at my video on Super Paper Mario, because I did a lot of animation in the middle of that video. I talked about what I would do if I were to change the combat in Super Paper Mario to go back to a turn-based system. So we'll talk about that, and then actually at the end, if we have time, I may look at the newest video that I just did, which is the creator's opinion is implied video, because also I did some cool animation stuff in that. So we'll kind of go piece by piece here and look at all the different bits that I put into my Paper Mario video. You could see here on the timeline anyway, I deleted everything else that I didn't need. So this is only the section where it shows all the different stuff, the things going on screen, all the different pieces showing. I pretty much recreated a stage of the Paper Mario combat that you all know and love. And so let's talk about it a little bit. At the beginning here, I talk about how it'd be really cool to use the perspective shift change from Super in the combat. Oh, I realized. Oh, I gotta do this again. Dang it! Sorry, I gotta do settings. Project settings. That's not it. Sorry. I gotta do preferences, audio, and change this to audio hardware, the Yeti. There you go. Yes. Otherwise, you're not gonna hear any of this stuff.
That have hidden notes on.
Yeah, okay, so now you'll hear me talking about it. So anytime I do any of this stuff, it's gonna like overload our editing tutorial video here. So I'm gonna play the clips as little as possible, but I'm gonna try to at least show you the animation as best I can. Anyway, I talk about it'd be good to put the perspective shift into the combat. So let's look at this layer by layer. So my bottom layer here is just my oh, I didn't even do uniform scale, so that's funny. But this is the stage from, I believe this one's from Thousand Year Door. It wasn't a uniform, like, this is what it would look like if it kept the correct dimensions of the picture that I got, but instead I dragged it out a little bit. So it's a little wider, so it's a 300% wide and 230 tall, but that's just to fill the screen and make it sizable. If everything was 300, for example, it would kind of cut off the top and bottom. So I just tried to stretch it as best I could to the screen, because it didn't really matter if that was bigger or smaller. So that's just the backdrop. Now we're going to talk more about that in a second, because I change it. I sort of made my own to make a different perspective here, and we'll talk about that in a second. But then the other piece here is Koops, the turtle behind Mario. I got Mario here as well. And then the top is a nested sequence, which I'll explain in a second, that is our original hand enemy that I made up for this example. So again, let's go piece by piece here, just to show you the different animation that everyone undergoes for this. So you'll see Mario and Koops appear on screen, and then they each have kind of their own individual animation. And this is actually what I really liked about doing this. I had a lot of fun making all this animation, and it's because every character has something different and unique about their animation. And it was just me messing around with a bunch of different ways to show enemies on screen. So Mario appears, Koops appears,
like a boss.
And then again, it might lag out a bunch for you. So both of them appear here with what I like to call my signature, for lack of a better term. I'm gonna turn this music down a little bit. My signature pop-in that I like to do, which is, you can see, it'll happen to Koops here, 10 frames to 10% larger than it's going to be. I talked about this in my title cards video. So 10 frames, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And now it's at 10% larger than the final size I want it to be, and then 6 frames to its ending resolution. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So in this case, the final size I wanted Koops to be at is 50%. You can see that on the scale here, 50, but at the largest it's 55. So again, 10% larger, right? and the beginning is 0. They start at nothing, they're tiny, they're a speck, you can't even see them, and then they grow to 10% larger and then settle in a little bit smaller. And again, it's going to lag out maybe a little bit here, but I didn't know how best you can see that. But essentially, Koops pops in, and I do that in so many of my videos. I do that all the time. So he pops in and then settles in. Mario does the exact same thing, but then I do the same thing for Mario and Koops here, and it's just a simple rotation. So they go side to side like this. That's all I have them do, and that's basically just so they're not totally stagnant there. But you can see just by looking at it, they just kind of rock back and forth like that, left to right. And again, it's supposed to be like an idle animation, but it's very basic. All I did is 3% rotation and -3, and I went between how many frames? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Probably about 30 frames. I think every 30 frames, I had them rotate between -3 and +3. So they're just rocking back and forth, up and down type thing. So that's a real, this is sort of a specific situation of the kind of animation I wanted to do for them, but I'm just showing you sort of my process, everything I did. So they popped in with a pop in, the 10% larger, and then settle, and then I just have them rotate to show like idle animation, which, if you're just thinking about Paper Mario and in combat, that's what they're doing, right? When you're picking what you want to do in the battle, and Mario's like, what should I do? It's just kind of some idle animation. But now let's talk about this nested sequence, because if I click on the nested sequence, you'll see what it actually is. It's the googly eyes and the actual hand itself. So the hand is a separate thing, and the eyes are a separate item as well. But I basically just set it on top of the hand the best way I wanted it to look, and then nested them. And if you don't know what a nested sequence means, that just means you put two things together and they become one object, and it just makes editing easier. So I don't have to animate the eyes and the hands separately, I just animate them all together. And just in case you want to know how to do that, you highlight both things. I held shift to do that, and then I right click and you can say nest, and then it'll tell you what to make it, and they'll become one object together on the timeline like that. Now, I could have done that, for example, here with Mario and Koops, because they're both doing the exact same animation at the exact same time. So I could have done that. The only reason I didn't make these guys nested is because Mario appears in sooner than Koops. So at least up until that point, they need to be separate objects, because Mario pops in first back here, then Mario comes in, and then Koops comes in later. So I could have, from this point, literally right here, I could have, cut these and made these a nested sequence. I just didn't. There's a point where it saves you time or whatever, but in this case, I'm pretty sure I just animated one of them. I said, okay, 3%, 3%, and then I copy and pasted. Like, I literally just copied, the animation frames there and then pasted them on the other one. So it's about time and efficiency, but I'm just telling you, there are different things you can do. Now, the next thing I did here for the hand, the way he popped in was a little bit different. So I did the same thing where it's 10% larger and then it settles, but I let it stay larger for a longer amount of time. So right now you can see it's at 110%, and it doesn't shrink down until here, and then it goes back down to 100. And the reason I did that is because in the middle there, this extra time, is he does some really fast animation. So it's only 2 frames in between, but he's doing the same thing, 3, -3, 3, -3. But it's just way faster than Mario and Koops, right? So they're going at 30 frames, -3, 30 frames, +3. This guy's going -3, +3, really, really fast. And you can see what that looks like. It's just
a boss.
Like it comes in and makes a real. My goal was to make it look like he's like doing a roar or like a angry yell, like an enemy in a game, right? So he pops in, he gets big, and he goes roar, left, right, left, right, left, right, and then settles for a second with no animation, but then he settles down to the size. And then instead of having him rock back and forth, what I did was have him just sit there totally stagnant, but then do that same thing, that same really fast back and forth every now and again. And so what it makes, it sort of gives the illusion. And again, since I can't necessarily show you the animation super easily, I just recommend going and watching this section of the video for reference so you can see what the final product looks like. So it makes him look like just a very angry enemy, where he's there and then he just like bursts with anger, right? It's just like a like, you know, he's just settled, and then so that's basically what happens. Mario and Koops are rocking back and forth, idle animation, and then this guy's like just sitting there doing nothing, but then he goes like really fast, like that. And so that's this guy's kind of unique animation, right? Now, let's talk about when I shift, because again, in this video, I talked about how shifting the perspective, and so I made this. Now, we got to talk about this, because this is the biggest thing about animation that was new to me when I did this was 3D. So, in your effects panel here, down on the bottom left, you can say effects and go basic 3D. I realized our music's quiet again. I can turn it up. My iTunes is being bad. Anyway, basic 3D is the perspective that I put on there. So let's go here. Again, this is two separate objects. So this is the floor, right? And then this second one here is this curtain. And just so you know, these are all just objects I pulled offline. Most of the time, if there's any type of thing popping on screen or whatever, most of the time that's all it's going to be, is we just find stuff on Google Image or whatever. So I just grabbed a curtain and a floor that I thought looked okay or close enough to Mario. Obviously it's not the same. This is more platted wood, you know, and this is like a Mario curtain with stars and mushrooms on it. But I got, you know, the basic idea across here of what it could look like. Now, it's not perfect, actually, and I wish I could have done it better, but I'll explain why I was not able to. And hopefully our program won't crash in the process, because it's very finicky when it comes to 3D. So basic 3D is the effect I put on it, and you can see it up here, basic 3D. Now, what I did was tilt the object. So this is the floor, right? So distance to image makes it so, oh man, yeah, sorry, this music's going back and forth in terms of like being really loud or really quiet. So distance to image makes it smaller, like it's pushing it back further on screen. And the only reason I did that a little bit here was so that Premiere gets like overloaded if you do way too much 3D perspective change, and it might just be my computer. I probably just need more CPU or RAM or whatever. But anyway, I wanted to tilt it, because just so you see what it looks like with zero tilt, this is the original picture I grabbed. It's just a picture of the ground like that. Now, obviously I needed it to be a perspective, but this whole section is talking about 3D view. So I tilted it -72 so that it goes back, and so it's at an angle. Now, if I did it any more, for example, if I did -90, Premiere does not load it. And again, this is why I was saying it gets overloaded. It's not able to render out what that looks like. Oh, actually, that's not true. In this case, -90 would be completely invisible. So because it's like totally flat, right? But -80, you can see it a little bit. So again, if I change it, so like -40, you know, it's just changing the angle. But whatever I said, -72 is what I thought would be a good enough angle of what I wanted. And then I basically had to do the same thing with the curtain, but I did swivel instead of tilt. So tilt is the, let's see if I can get this right, x-axis, and swivel is the y-axis, right? So again, if I made this 0, the original curtain image just looks like this. So all of these were flat images when I originally had them. It's just a flat curtain and a flat ground. And all I did was change the perspective on them so that you see them from a different angle. So this one's a little bit higher percentage, -76, but I tried to just line them up the best I could. Now, part of me wishes, you know, yeah, I could make it wider, like if I did the 600, but it just kind of messes with the perspective. This was essentially the best I could do. It doesn't look perfect. Like I said, I wished like maybe the curtain could extend further out here, and it could be flush here, but I kind of just did the best I could within Premiere's limitations. But I essentially tried to make them 3D and from a different perspective that, based on this picture of Mario, which that's what this is, by the way, this is our Mario guy. That's just an angle perspective I grabbed from online. That's a backward picture from Thousand Year Door. pretty sure it's Thousand Year Door. Maybe it's Super, but I'm pretty positive it's Thousand Year Door. But just when Mario's facing away from the camera, there's just a picture of him that looks like that. So I just grabbed that angle already. So you can see that this is from behind Mario's head. It's sort of a third-person perspective, right? So I faded into this. I said, okay, and then it goes into here. And I talked about in the video about how if you change perspectives, maybe this fist enemy opens his hand and it'll show you, you know, a hint. Oh, don't touch peppers. Oh, okay, so if I use like a pepper item, or, you know, if one of my party members had a hot, spicy attack or something, you know, this is all example theoretical, but just to show that, like, if the hand was like this, and you can't see into the hand, or even if the hand, you know, is like this, right? So like the hand's from this angle, so it's like change the perspective so you can see what's written on his hand. That's all I was trying to get across. But again, I did a nested sequence here, and same thing, it's just the open hand, and then this is just a title of text that I have that's just reminder, don't touch peppers, and I just made it a scribble font, so it's like written on his hand, right? So that's a nested sequence, again, those things together. And again, the reason you want to do that is so that you don't have to animate them both separately. Now they're just one object, so when they rotate together. And this, I did the exact same animation as Mario and Koops in the previous frame, 30 frames of 3% -3, 3% -3. Again, just to give it a little bit of animation, a little bit of you know, movement. But I didn't move Mario in this one. From this angle, it would have looked weird. Plus, I wanted the focus to be on the hand and the change, so I didn't animate Mario for that. But here, everything's animated because this is a familiar point of view. This is, oh, I get it. This is, you know, Paper Mario Combat. I get it. So you wanted it. I want it to be as animated as possible, looking like a real battle. But then in here, okay, just showing you. Here's some animation of the hand. Here's, you know, explaining what this is going to look like. This perspective shift idea, because this is the first time you see that in the video. And then right here, I give another example. This is a fight where Bowser fights Squid Monster in underwater, and so I give the example here about what if you had Bowser fighting the Squid Monster. Now here, again, animation is going to be a little different. I didn't pop Bowser in this case because I did a fast cut, same background, then Bowser, and then the blooper does pop in though. I have him pop in the same 10% you know, trick that I do. And then from here, I rotate it and move the position around. So again, this is sort of his unique animation for this case. It's a little different. Let's see, it looks like it's 30 frames, and the rotation is only 1%, but then 3 to 1. I threw in like a extra weird one. So this one is not, what's the word? It's not consistent. Instead, I sort of made it wild and different and changing, because it's a squid. It's supposed to be like a blah, you know, squids do crazy wild things. So the rotation goes 1%, or -1, 1, 0, 3, so then it's like a more rotation, and then a 1, you know. But then the position also changes, so it goes up and down, left and right a little bit. So it looks like it's just vertical in this case. You can see the left one here, which is your X position, never changes, but the Y position changes a lot. So the animation you get almost looks like he's like riding waves, which also was the effect I was going for here. So Bowser has the regular, you know, rotation just to show, hey, here's Bowser. But the blooper looks almost like it's riding a wave. It's like a woo woo, you know, and they're not consistent. It's different. I have it do some crazy stuff. So again, just different stuff. I'm messing with the rotation, with the position, the scale as it pops in, and then again I change the perspective here. Now we do the side perspective. Now you can see obviously this is a different picture of Bowser. This is I believe that's a Superstar Saga picture or something, or a Mario and Luigi sprite. I'm not exactly sure, but I just wanted to get the angle of Bowser from behind, so I just pulled what I could. And then same thing here, I did something a little goofy. So you can see I used the same blooper hands here from this clip. I cut out so it's nested, and this is a lot more in the nest. So I cut out the blooper head, So I did a crop on it. You can see if I did it to the left. In fact, I cropped even the original. So originally, this is what the actual thing looked like, was the different bloopers, these ones that I already cut out, I didn't use them, and a Mario thing as well. Instead, I cropped it so it's just the head. So that's, you know, cropping is really good for animation. If there's extra stuff in a picture that you don't want, because again, here's the original pictures I have, all the PNGs that I put. In fact, yeah, here, this is the original picture. And so I cropped everything except for just the head here, and then in the last frame, these ones. So cropping is your friend when you want to get a specific thing for animation. Now again, so just the head there, but then the nested sequences are the hands. And what I did is I isolated individual tentacles. So again, I cropped everything so that it's just one tentacle, and there's 3 of them, so boom, 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 and they're in different positions here. And then on this is a title where I just have a bunch of circles. So this is just, you know, 3 circles, and they're filled a solid color of red. They have an outer stroke that's thick, which is the black stuff around the dots, so you can just see what they are. And then these ones that are yellow, and same thing. I pretty much copy and paste. I grabbed 3, copy pasted, moved them over here, and then again, and then turned them red. So all that's just circles in a title to make the colored tentacles, because again, I'm replicating this shot from Super, where there's yellow ones that you can't touch, but a red one that you can. And so I'm simulating that here. Again, it's not like one-to-one exact, but the best I could do. And then the animation here is also a little bit different. So the blooper head, I don't animate Bowser at all, right? Here's Bowser, yeah, same thing, because again, I want the focus to be on the blooper. I have the head do a little bit of rotation. It's smaller, looks like it's just 1, 1, 1, so smaller rotations. But again, the big up, down, trying to simulate that riding a wave animation. And the hands are a little bit, I don't rotate them at all, I just have them go up and down, up and down. So again, they're not in sync, and that's on purpose. I wanted it to look wild, like a wild squid moving around, but then the hands, but then also riding the waves. So again, very different from the hand animation from this one, just to give it its own unique flair. And I'm gonna try to go quickly here just because we're out of time, way over time. I do this again, so this one has a lot more pieces. The background, this is the cloud guy, that's one of the people from Super. I made him a friend. Now this guy, instead of having him rotate left and right like Mario does, because Mario just does the regular rotation, I have this guy go up and down, which makes sense. He's on a cloud, he should just be going up and down like riding on a cloud. Fractail is the giant dragon that's off screen. I have him simply rotate as well. He does the same thing as Mario, but it's the other direction. So you can see as that's happening, while Mario's going left, he's going right, and then they come back like this. So that's just to show it's a little bit different. And he's bigger, so the animation looks bigger as well. And then here, the clefts, I'm reminiscing over how much fun I had just making up new animations for all of this. So the little clefts here, I put 2 of them, so these are the same back to back, but I have them hop at different times. So this, all they do is up, down, but it's really quick. So it's like a up, down, you know, you can see there, up, down, and then this guy does it at different times, up, down, up, down, up, down. So they just hop at different intervals. And I just thought that looked really cool in combination with the other guy rotating. And then I show this over here. I'll try to get everything on screen. Well, let's start here. So now again, I copied the same angle to show. I put the cliffs in front, and I only showed one because they're back to back. So I had him hop, but I'm only showing one because the other one's supposed to be directly behind him. Now I had Fractail do the same animation, and so it does look, it looks a little different because he's going left to right, even from this different angle, but I didn't think it really mattered, because again, the focus here is on the switch, the thing here, which I emphasize with an arrow right above it. And so, again, just some animation there, just some animation to show you what's going on. This is, oh, it's only nested because of the background, don't worry about that. Here I have different party members popping in and out. You can just see quickly as they go pop in, pop out, pop in, pop out, pop in, pop out. But then I have Mimi doing the same thing, that back and forth animation. So they're doing the 10% pop in, pop out. You can see it's 2 separate layers here because there's always 2 on screen at a time, and they need to kind of overlap at different times. So here they switch to Luigi, but then here Peach switches to the Crag guy, and then Koops, and so they staggered a little bit, but you can see the different. So it's because Peach is still on screen with Luigi, and then Luigi is still on screen with this guy, and then vice versa. So they just kind of rotate, but they do the pop in while Mimi is just sitting there rocking back and forth. And then finally, the last bit here, same thing. So I have Luigi and Mario rotating like normal. Wart, what did I have him do?
The only one.
Okay, yeah. So again, it's just fun for me to look back at this. Wart is doing a diagonal rotation back and forth, just like that. And so that is a combination of at the same time rotation -3, but then changing both vertical and horizontal position, and then 0 back to the original. So yeah, original, and then +3 instead of -3. So it's just changing the angles. So these are what they call keyframes, and then there's just motion tween animation in between. So that keyframe at that angle, back to the original, keyframe at that angle, and then back at the original. And it just does all the motion in between to make sure it looks good. And then again, I had him pause, and then he does it again. So that's his unique animation there. And now this one, I don't believe I animated either of them instead, because again, I'm showing off the rope thing here. Now this one was fun, and we're gonna end it here. Again, this is longer than I wanted it to be. This is the rope. Oh no, sorry, this is Mario right here, and this is the rope. The rope never moves, but what I have is Mario going up, so I have him just literally just position move, and this is ease out, ease in, so the animation looks smoother. So I have him move over to the rope, but then this is a different Mario, so I cut to a different Mario, but try to line it up as best I can. So this is so funny for me to rewatch. So I cut it, yeah, and it's like they're pretty close. Because it's moving instantly, you hardly notice. So switches pictures of Mario. Now again, I have him jump up, and then I slowly have him go down for a long time. He hops back up again really quick, and then drops down to the ground. So the whole animation is like a jump, pull down, jump back down. And that was kind of, it just takes, the thing that to most know about animation is it takes time, it takes practice, it takes a lot of tweaking and adjusting different things to make it look just right. And so that's all that was. Then he jumps down, and then again then I have it go back to the original picture, so now it looks like Mario's just looking at Wart. Now I did put a horizontal flip on him as well, because you can see this is the original. I changed his position and I flipped him so that now he's looking a different way. And this is like super basic rudimentary animation, but that's all I was going for. Is he moves over here, I animate this guy, and then so all that together looks like what you just saw. Wart never moves, but then what the rope did is it caused a thwomp to fall on Wart, and you can see down here, this is a sound effect. It's the thwomp sound effect for Mario 64, the exact thing.
Forcing your way.
Okay, and now here, final animation that you can see, he's off screen originally. This is negative, way up high, up here, and he falls down on screen. The thwomp picture is from Super, which is really funny, but then the sound effects from 64. It falls on thwomp, but I wanted a little bit more animation than that. I wanted it to bounce as it hits the ground. So I have it land in the final position I want it to be, but then 2 frames. Oh, actually, nothing happened there, but then I go up 2 and then down 2. So just a very small, very subtle animation, but it just gives it a little bounce at the end.
Forcing your.
So it goes boing, just a little tiny bit. And with the sound effect as well, really drives home that animation of it's falling and boom, gives it a little boom, boom, little weight to it. So there you go. That's like, I mean, crazy. We spent way longer than I was hoping we would talking about this. I was going to show you this really quickly. This is just a background, the background color I have on here. Here's all of the pictures on top of each other. This is when I'm talking about all the different party members that you get in 64 and Thousand Year Door. So here's Lackluster. That would be this one in the back. Vivian and Goombella. So that's the left side. Parakarry, again, top going to bottom. Lady Bow and Admiral Bobbery, and then finally Yoshi in front here. And all I did, the animation looks really smooth, and all I did is they move in toward the center like that, which looks really cool. And all I did is you just move them. So you can't see that. I'll remove the crossfade so you can see, because I have it fade in from the previous animation. I'll remove that just so you can see what it all looks like. But like Lackluster here, quiet music, man. Tell you what. There we go. Okay, so Lackluster. I have him. I basically just set the initial position and the end position. So there, and then I want them to end right there. And I think this is where I actually started, was the end frame. What should it look like at the very end, where everyone's nice and centered and a good just, like, that's like a wallpaper, you know, it just looks really cool. And then I backed up for however long I wanted it to happen, and I started here. And it's essentially just a big motion tween, the whole thing. What do I want the first frame to look like, and what do I want the last frame to look like? It's a long gap. It's probably like, you know, I mean, look, that's like from almost it's like 3 or 4 seconds long. And so this is the initial, and I just had them, I had the Yoshi right here start low, and these guys start to the left, and these guys start to the right. But so here they're a little bit lined up. They're not quite perfectly vertical with each other, but they're a lot closer than at the end, right? Because you go to the end and they're way more angled. And so all that takes is Lackluster getting a lot more motion than Goombella. So Goombella, you can see from left to right, 147 at the end to 205. So give or take 50, you know, X position pixels. And Lackluster is 316 to 562. So you can see again just like 200 pixels versus 50. So way more animation. And then Vivian's in the middle somewhere. So 299 to 425. So like 125. So again, you're just seeing like more animation for the back guys because they're traveling more distance, and less animation for the front guys because they are moving less. And so I copied the same thing from the front and back. And then the Yoshi just pops up a little more. So big slow motion tween. Again, it's eased out and eased in. It just gives a very smooth animation to it. I really like doing ease out, ease in. I think it looks really, really nice and smooth. Most of the time I'll do that if something's just moving on screen. Anyway, you know, I hope that wasn't too lengthy and long-winded. I just have a lot of fun talking about it. But it was a blast to put all that together, and at the very least, just seeing my process, hopefully that shows you a little bit of how I do some of the animation I do. Again, just to reinforce, so much of it is tweaking, changing, testing, moving things just a fraction of an inch, a little more or less, a frame here or there, shorter or longer. It's just a lot of tweaking until it looks as right to you as possible. And that's really all that animation is, at least in Premiere and video editing. So I hope you enjoyed. I do think maybe I'll do a second one of these. Hopefully down the road I'll do a second one where I do look at the animation in my Creator's Opinion is Implied video, because that had some really cool animation as well. More basic 3D movement. Because in this, we have basic 3D, but no animation in 3D. So I'll talk about that in a separate one. Maybe we'll do a part 2. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you for watching. Thanks for continuing to support the channel. $10 patrons since you got this early. And I will see you guys next time. Adios, bye, see ya.